In 1990, the average American worker could buy a brand new Toyota Camry with 11 weeks of their salary. Today, 37 weeks. Let that sit for a second. 37 weeks of the average paycheck. For a Camry, not a sports car, not a luxury vehicle. A mid-size family sedan with a 4-cylinder engine and a reputation for being boring on purpose. And here's the thing that should bother you more than the price. The Camry didn't get 3 times better. It didn't get 3 times faster, 3 times safer, or 3 times more capable. It got some extra screens, a lane keep assist system that half the people who own it have turned off, and a price tag that's quietly, methodically drifted so far from what ordinary people earn that we've basically stopped questioning it. We just assume cars are expensive now and move on. But that's exactly what Toyota is counting on. Because in 2024, a base Tacoma starts just under $32,000. The same truck, adjusted for inflation, should cost $29,000. It costs $32,000. And that's the one without the options. Manual rear windows, fabric seats, no tech package, just the truck. $32,000 before the dealer gets involved. A baseline cruiser is $57,000. A 4Runner Chard Pro is over $56,000. A loaded Tundra clears $60,000 without trying. These aren't supercars. These are trucks and SUVs that your dad bought, that your neighbor drives to work, that were specifically built for the people who actually need a truck. And they've become unaffordable to most of those people. So what happened? Who made this call? And why did we all just kind of accept it? That's what this video is about. The number nobody wants to say. Before we get into how this happened, I want to give you a number. One number. Because it reframes everything else in this video. The median household income in America in 2024 is about $74,000 a year. Financial advisors, not fringe ones, mainstream ones, say your vehicle shouldn't cost more than 20% of your annual gross income if you want to stay in a healthy financial position. 20% of $74,000 is $14,800. There is not a single new Toyota on sale in the United States today that costs $14,800. Not one. The cheapest thing Toyota sells here is the Corolla. Base price, around $22,000. It is already $7,000 over the budget of the median American household before you've paid a cent in taxes, registration, or dealer fees. Before you've financed a dollar of it. So when people say they can't afford a new Toyota, they're not being dramatic. They're not being bad with money. They're just doing math. And the math says that the most accessible car in Toyota's entire lineup is out of reach for the financial situation most Americans are actually in. That didn't happen by accident. And it didn't happen overnight. What Toyota used to be. To understand how Toyota got here, you have to go back to where they started. Because the Toyota of 1990 and the Toyota of 2024 are selling fundamentally different things to fundamentally different people, and only one of them will admit it. Toyota first tried to crack the American market in 1958. It went badly. They brought over a car called the Toyota Crown, which is a name that tells you everything about how they were thinking about the US market at the time. The engine overheated on sustained highway driving. The suspension was tuned for Japanese roads. The thing had maybe 50 horsepower in a country where the average family car made 150. They pulled it after 2 years. But here's what Toyota did next that set them apart. They didn't shrug it off. They spent 6 years studying exactly why it failed before they came back. And when they came back in 1965 with the Corona, they came back with something that was specifically designed for what lower-income American buyers actually needed. Something that started every morning. Something that didn't rust out in 3 winters. Something cheap to fix when it did break. That sounds basic. But in the American market of the late 60s and 70s, it wasn't basic at all. The big three, Ford, GM, Chrysler, had spent years assuming that American buyers didn't have alternatives, and they built cars accordingly. The quality was genuinely poor. When Toyota showed up offering something that just worked, people noticed. By the 80s, the Camry was on its way to becoming the best-selling car in America. Not because it was exciting. It wasn't. Not because it was cheap in the way a budget car is cheap. It wasn't that either. It was because Toyota had figured out a specific type of buyer. The practical buyer. The long horizon buyer. The person who thought about the total cost of ownership over a decade rather than just the sticker price today, and they had built an entire brand around serving that person. Those people trusted Toyota. They came back. They brought their kids. Who brought their kids? Toyota's repeat buyer rate was extraordinary, and it was built on a simple idea. We understand what you need, and we'll give it to you at a price that makes sense. And then, slowly and very deliberately, they stopped. The three things that changed everything. The shift didn't come from one decision. It came from three things that happened at roughly the same time, stacked on top of each other, and Toyota's leadership read them all as a green light. The first was cheap money. After the 2008 financial crisis, interest rates hit the floor and stayed there for a decade. That changed how Americans bought cars in a way that nobody fully talked about at the time. When money is cheap, you can stretch loan terms. And stretched loan terms change the question buyers ask at the dealership. It used to be, what does this car cost? After 2008, it became, what's my monthly payment? Those are very different questions. One is about total value. One is about fitting a number into a budget. Once the monthly payment became the primary metric, the ceiling on what manufacturers could charge effectively disappeared. A $500 monthly payment feels the same whether the car costs $30,000 or $45,000, as long as you push the loan out far enough. Toyota watched that shift happen, and they understood exactly what it opened up. The second thing was what their brand had become. By the 2000s, Toyota's reliability reputation had crossed a line from practical advantage into cultural signal. A Land Cruiser wasn't just a reliable vehicle anymore. It was a statement. It showed up in overland content, in outdoor media, in the driveways of people who wanted to project a certain kind of competence and durability. The 4Runner became almost aspirational in a way that no one at Toyota had necessarily planned. When a brand becomes aspirational, the pricing rules change. People don't buy aspirational things purely on rational calculation. They buy them for what they mean, and meaning can be priced at a premium. The third thing was supply. Starting in the early 2010s and then accelerating sharply after the pandemic, Toyota produced fewer vehicles than the market was asking for. Now, Toyota has the capacity to build more. They chose not to. Constrained supply against strong demand does two things simultaneously. It pushes transaction prices up because buyers are competing for limited inventory, and it keeps used Toyota values high because there aren't enough new ones to satisfy demand. That second part matters more than people realize. When your used vehicles hold their value, the total cost of ownership story stays compelling. People feel okay paying more because they believe they'll get more back when they sell. Scarcity in the car market isn't a natural phenomenon, it's a managed one. And Toyota managed it very well. Then the dealers got involved. Here's the part of the story that Toyota doesn't love talking about, because it makes them look either complicit or incompetent. And the honest answer is probably somewhere in between. Toyota can't tell its dealers what to charge. The franchise model doesn't work that way. Dealers are independent businesses, and MSRP, the manufacturer's suggested retail price, is exactly what it says it is. A suggestion. Legally, dealers can charge whatever the market will accept. And from about 2021 onward, the market accepted a lot. During the semiconductor shortage, when new vehicle inventory fell off a cliff across the entire industry, Toyota dealers discovered something. People would pay over sticker for a 4Runner, not a little over, a lot over. Dealers started listing them at $45,000, $50,000, sometimes $55,000 for vehicles that stickered at $40,000. And buyers paid it. Because there was nothing else available, and used ones cost almost as much anyway. The window sticker got a new line item. Sometimes it said market adjustment. Sometimes it said dealer added value. What it meant was, we installed a paint protection film in the back and a GPS tracker you didn't ask for, and we're charging you $4,000 for it, and you don't get to say no if you want the truck. Most people assumed this would end when supply recovered. It didn't. Not everywhere. Because dealers who had spent years competing on thin margins discovered that high margins felt better. Some of them just kept the markups. And Toyota issued statements encouraging fair pricing that carried exactly zero enforcement mechanisms. Because Toyota's residual values were staying high, their brand positioning was strengthening. The people being hurt were the retail buyers, and retail buyers are not on Toyota's board of directors. So the markup stayed, and the effective price of being a Toyota customer quietly climbed another notch. Let's do the actual math. I want to run two numbers side by side because I think it's the clearest way to show you what actually changed. It's 2003. You're buying a Camry LE. Sticker price, around $20,000. You finance it at 6% for 5 years. Your monthly payment is about $386. You drive it for 10 years. You sell it for about $6,000. Total cost of ownership, factoring in depreciation and interest, is somewhere in the range of $17,000 to $19,000 over a decade. That's a car that makes sense. Now it's 2024. Same car, same basic logic. Camry lists stickers at around $27,000. By the time you add destination, dealer fees, and whatever they've put on the window in the last month, you're probably looking at $29,000 to $30,000 out the door. You finance that at 8%, which is what good credit gets you right now, for 72 months, because that's what it takes to get the payment to something that feels manageable. Monthly payment, around $512. Total amount paid over the loan, about $37,000. And that's before insurance, which on a new Camry in most of the country is going to run you another $150 to $200 a month. So you're looking at roughly $700 a month to own and insure a base Camry. For a household bringing home $5,000 a month after taxes, which is roughly what the median household income looks like once you've paid your federal and state tax, that's 14% of your take-home on one car. Before fuel, before maintenance, before anything. And the Camry is the affordable one. A 4Runner on the same financing math comes out at around $811 a month on payment alone. If you're an average earner and you want a 4Runner, you're spending somewhere between 15% and 18% of your gross income on that single vehicle. Financial advisors say keep all vehicle expenses under 15% to 20%. One truck is eating the whole budget. The buyers who made Toyota what it is, the ones who did the math, liked the answer and came back every 8 years for another one, are doing that same math now and getting a different answer. They're not angry. They're just done, and the used market won't save you. The obvious move at this point is to go used. Buy a 3 or 4 year old Toyota, get most of the reliability with none of the new car premium. Reasonable strategy. There's just one problem. Toyota's reliability is the problem. A 2024 Runner with 80,000 miles on it was selling for around $38,000 in 2024. A 2020 Tacoma Chart off-road with 60,000 miles, $31,000 to $34,000. A 2018 Land Cruiser with 100,000 miles was sitting above $50,000 at listings across the country. These are not new vehicles. These are 4, 5, and 6-year-old trucks with real mileage on them, selling for prices within a few $1,000s of what they cost new. And you're financing them at used car rates, which currently run higher than new car rates at most lenders. So you're paying near new money at worse interest rates for a vehicle with no warranty and 60,000 miles of prior history. The engine that won't break created a used market that won't fall. Toyota's greatest strength turned into a wall that prices out the exact buyers who needed the reliability most. There's something genuinely cruel about that, even if nobody planned it that way. The last option is going old. Pre-2010 Tacoma. 3rd Gen 4Runner. A 2005 Land Cruiser with 200,000 miles that you can actually afford. Those trucks exist. They're buyable. They're also 20 years old, without modern safety tech, without warranty, and with maintenance needs that are real and unpredictable. It's not a bad option. It's just not what Toyota used to offer the people who needed it. Here's the thing about what Toyota did. None of it was illegal. None of it was even particularly surprising if you understand how businesses work. They found leverage, and they used it. They had a brand reputation that had taken 40 years to build, a customer base that was deeply loyal, and a market environment that rewarded higher margins. They took the opportunity. That's what companies do. But there's a version of this story where Toyota looks at that loyalty and decides it's worth protecting. Where they look at the buyer who came back for 30 years and say, we're not going to price you out. Where they use their scale and their efficiency to hold the line on what it costs to own one of our cars. Where the reliability reputation becomes a reason to charge less, not more. Because the long-term ownership math is still what brings people back. They didn't make that choice. They made the other one. And the buyers who built Toyota into the biggest automotive brand on earth are now standing in dealership lots doing math that tells them to leave. Not angry, not making a scene, just leaving. Buying a Kia, buying a used Honda, buying nothing and driving the old one another 2 years. Toyota's numbers still look great. Margins are up. Brand value is up. Per vehicle profit is up. Everything that goes on a slide in a board meeting is going in the right direction. What doesn't go on that slide is the 30-year customer who bought their last Toyota last year and doesn't know it yet. Remember where we started. 11 weeks in 1990, 37 weeks today. That's not inflation. That's not the cost of better technology. That's a decision made deliberately, executed methodically, about who this brand is for. And quietly, without an announcement, without a press release, without anyone at Toyota ever saying it out loud, the answer stopped being you.